we touched on this earlier and maybe I didn't fully explain it, but like, how are the Shriners lying to the public about their donations?
So this one is tricky because a lot of people are confused about the Shriners themselves. When most people think about the Shriners, they'll think of the hats that they wear, parades, and the hospitals, but not necessarily the shrine temples. They will say things like, help us help kids, which people find very confusing. They aren't the same entity, though. So some well-intentioned people might think that attending a circus benefits children, but the ticket sales aren't charitable donations. Mm-hmm. And it will say this in fine print on the tickets, but often people don't look at the fine print, and the fine print is just confusing. So most local people who are buying tickets to these circuses don't really know that the profits from these are used for operating expenses, like maintaining the club's premises, like you mentioned. And there's just really no reason to do this anymore. There are countless of other ways to fundraise. And you mentioned that the Shriners have other types of fundraisers.
Tell me why some clubs, tell me why some Shriners clubs and chapters are still doing circuses and others are not, and how the ones that are not are making it work and fundraising, and it's like, what's stopping the ones that are still using animals from just nixing them entirely?
Nothing's stopping them but themselves. Some shrine clubs never had circuses with animals to begin with. Some have done away with their circuses that use animals and still host circuses, but they're human powered. Some have done away with their circuses altogether. But I think some Shriners might just be resistant to change, and they think that their circuses are traditional, when that's not even really the case. You had mentioned what circuses used to call freak shows. In the past, circus acts exploited and ridiculed humans with disabilities and differences, which is, a callous tradition. We all agree that there's no place for that in a circus now. I'm sure that the Shriners would agree with that as well. And our society is evolving to reject the exploitation of animals. The circus is changing all the time. And by not ending the use of animals for the ones who still use them, it is, really looks bad for all of the shrines in general. And the Shriners will go down in history as one of the last major groups who are just clinging to this abuse for no reason.
Well, what are alternatives? How can, what you were bringing up some technologies, Justina painted a picture for us of what a future circus could look like, but what's actually happening now? And what are some circuses that don't use animals called?
There is a growing list of modern and progressive circuses that dazzle their audiences with only willing human performers, and there is a list on PETA.org. So if anyone is looking for a human-only circus in their area, you can go there and find a long list. There is all kinds of new technology out there. Even traditional human-powered acts are very interesting to people, to children.
They're so cool.
Robots.
I don't know about the robots, but people being, athletic and entertaining and creative.
Tell us
that's
about
really
the robots.
Cool.
I want to hear more.
So we actually talked a little bit about Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, and they came back last year with a human-powered only show, but they do have a robotic dog named Bailey, and this is an example of a modern circus using robotics. Children love Bailey. I read a recent article where children, after going to one of Ringling's new shows, were asked, would you rather see animals or Bailey? You can only choose one. And all of the children said that they would rather see Bailey. Sure. So it's something that would be popular, and there are endless alternatives, endless technologies we could use.
This just makes me think that it's like, and all the money to feed the animals, to house them, for medical bills, which the vet care is atrocious, as we know, but use that money instead to build robots that are like big cats that will jump through the fire hoops, or make a big robotic bear. Use that money to evolve and make new technology for circuses.
Yeah, that would be much, much better.
Or holographics, as you were saying.
I would say holographics more than robots, because then...
All right, she hates
technology. In like 1,000 years, then we're gonna be fighting for robot rights.
Okay, great.
But it's okay. I'd much rather that than the animals
until we get there. So, one last question that I have is, what can people do to help today?
So everybody who wants to help can learn more by going to PETA.org. You can even take action online at the click of a button to send a letter to Shriners International leadership and individual shrine temples, urging them to stop using animals. And of course, everyone should help by never buying a ticket to any circus, shrine circus or otherwise, that uses animals.